We interrupt your news programming on PBS. This is a national emergency. Important guidelines will follow. The following message has been transmitted by request from Burlington Northern. At around 5:50 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, a distraught call to 911 to the Ledger Fire Rescue Squad. Two Burlington Northern freight trains suffered an extremely explosive head-on collision, destroying all 9 combined locomotives and 22 combined freight cars. 3 crew members were confirmed to being killed instantly. Another 8 suffered minor and critical injuries. Stay tuned for later statements by media outlets on this developing story. Hazardous materials warning. The following message has been transmitted by request from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the National Security Agency, and the Federal Railroad Administration. The following items confirmed on the derailed 602 bound for Alberta, Montana are as followed: flammable, toxic, and spontaneously combustible explosives, PETN, propane, gasoline, butane, ethanol, nitrocellulose, red, white and green phosphorus, calcium carbide, sodium metal, sodium chloride, glycerin, nitric acid, hydrochloric acid, and dry ice. Anyone within a 90-mile radius is advised to head to a shelter immediately. Stay tuned for further updates. Civil danger warning for the Ledger area. The following message has been transmitted by request from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the NTSB. A heavy 55,000-degree fire has spread through the areas of Ledger. Reports were scattered that a 44,000 foot of flames shot into the air. Heavy damage was also confirmed at the scene of the train wreck. Also, locomotives 2275, 8009, 6909, 6905, 6901, 2287, 2283, 2274, and 2289 were all but destroyed to charred ruins, along with combined freight cars from trains 602 and 603. Tune to stations serving your area for later coverage on this dangerously developing story. Evacuation immediate. The following message has been transmitted by request from the NTSB and Operation Lifesaver. At around 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a shelter-in-place warning was issued by FEMA. Bring enough food, water, and medical supplies along with AM and FM radios for your time in the shelter. Do not head towards Helena Airport, as it too is shut down until further notice. Tune to 1240 FM or 1240 AM on your radio dial and your news station serving your area for later statements on this chaotically developing story. The NTSB, along with the Nuclear Emergency Search Team, NEST, has fully evacuated the crash site due to critically severe explosions from flammable and explosive cargo. Also, corrosive and dangerous wet materials were confirmed in one of the trains involved in the wreck. The other was mostly dangerous mixed goods and miscellaneous goods. Again, evacuate the area immediately under orders from the National Guard. They will help you lead you to one if you cannot find shelter. Listen to later statements from media outlets on this chaotically developing story. Lost connection. Retrying sent requested by order from the FEMA and National Guard. Department of State requesting final reconnection of internet security cameras from the number 3 power line. We interrupt your news programming for this urgent bulletin. This message has been sent by request of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau for Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, National Security Agency, NTSB, NEST, and the Department of Treasuries. At around 7:22 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, a chaotic explosion has occurred in Ledger, Montana. The crew who were injured were evacuated earlier from NTSB and NEST officials. Although no fallout is present, it is recommended you stay in your shelter for your own safety. Message will resume in 10 minutes. The following message has been transmitted by request of the United States government. This is not a test. An explosion on our country has occurred. Although no fallout is present from this horrific explosion, 33 other people were critically injured. There is confirmations of no fatalities from the blast alone. The NTSB has conducted themselves an online investigation to what actually caused the disaster at Ledger Mountain, Montana. Heavy flames are still present and will most likely to reproduce heavier explosions. Please remain in your shelters for your own safety. Do not leave shelters or open doors or windows. If you are caught, you will be arrested. Stay tuned for further updates. Telephone outage warning. The following message has been transmitted by request from the Ledger Emergency Management. At around 8:07 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, a flurry of 911 calls flooded the communications offices and shut all computer systems down. 911 will be out of service until repairs to wiring has been made. If you are in need of critical medical attention, dial 0 for your operator. Listen to instructions for calling cards and access codes for activating telephone operators. All parts of Ledger and Yellowstone National Park area shut down due to the train crash mentioned earlier. Listen to later statements from NTSB officials and NEST crew on this developing story. Stay tuned. We interrupt your news programming to deliver this urgent message. The telephone outage warning transmitted earlier has been terminated. All 911 lines have been fully restored. However, no all clears have been given to anyone in a shelter. Although fallout is not present from the explosion, it is recommended to stay in the shelter for your own safety. Stay tuned for later reports and statements made from NTSB officials on this story. Tune to 1240 FM on your radio dial for additional coverage on this developing story. Civil danger continues for the Ledger area. The following message has been transmitted by request from the Ledger Emergency Management, the NTSB, the NEST, and the Federal Bureau Investigation. Heavy toxic smoke has been detected after the fiery crash. At around 9:11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, hundreds of thousands of 911 calls poured into the hotline. Witnesses described an onyx and moonstone-colored smoke. Anyone near this area are advised to evacuate for your own safety. Listen to media outlets on later statements from FRA officials on this chaotically developing story. Weather Service in Ledger has issued a red flag warning for Ledger, Montana until 1:15 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. At around 9:35 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, National Weather Doppler radar indicated a firestorm at 500,000 degrees and winds around 35 miles per hour. This firestorm was detected after the explosion took place. Bring food, water, medical supplies, and FM and AM radios. Tune to 1240 FM and 1240 AM for later statements from media outlets on this chaotically developing story. Broadcasting has discontinued operations for duration of this emergency message. Stay tuned for further updates. The crash site has reignited the fire and remainder of the 32,000 gallons of unburned diesel fuel. Amethyst and moonstone-colored flames have shot skywards to 80,000 feet above sea level. Temperatures are now 4,500 degrees. The rest of the cargo will explode in 15 minutes. Remain in your shelters. Repeating again, remain in your shelters. Final warning. Remain in your shelters as an explosion is imminent of attack. Stay tuned for later statements from FBI and NTSB officials on this chaotically developing story. Stay tuned for further updates. Has been transmitted by request from the United States government. This is not a test. Another attack in the state of Montana has occurred. No confirmed deaths were reported, but 2 suffered critical injuries and 6th-degree burns from the blast that occurred 5 minutes ago. Although there are no signs of trespassing in DNA to match evidence, this has been determined to be a result of an unfortunate accident and not a disgraceful display of terrorism against the United States. Stay tuned for further updates on your radio dial. Tune to 1240 FM for current and AM for later statements on this chaotically developing story. Service has issued a red flag warning for Ledger Mountain, Montana until 5:15 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. At around 10:10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, National Weather Service indicated a firestorm traveling at 500,000 degrees under the Yellowstone Mountains. This heat will kill anyone within 55,000 feet. All fire rescue and aerial tankers have been alerted and are en route to the crash site. Drink heavy amounts of cold water to prevent dehydration. Seal all cracks from doors and windows with towel. This will prevent accidental smoke inhalation. Lock doors and windows and have no air conditioning by any means. You are spreading the flames around you by doing so. Again, the National Weather has issued a red flag warning for the entire state of Montana until 5:15 Mountain Daylight Time. Take cover now. Civil danger still continues for the Ledger Mountain areas. The following message has been transmitted by request from the Federal Bureau Investigation, NTSB, and the NEST calcium carbide has just caught fire and is minutes away from igniting another fire. Remain in your shelters until all clears have been given by appropriate authorities. Those who evacuated Ledger Mountain are advised to remain in your shelters for your own safety. Again, this is a deadly situation for the entire state of Montana. All emergency personnel are recommended to evacuate the area immediately. Stay tuned for further updates. All firefighting equipment with aerial assistance are advised to not use water when dousing the fire. Calcium carbide is dangerous when wet. Dangerous when wet means the material is flammable when coming in contact with water. It produces heavily carcinogenic gases when liters. Anyone not evacuated earlier, you are strongly advised to head to a shelter for your own safety. Listen to FBI statements later on in this broadcast. Tune to 1240 FM and 1240 AM on your radio dial for later statements on this chaotically developing story. The National Weather Service in Ledger has issued a flash flood warning for Ledger in Montana until 6:10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. At around 12:38 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, National Weather Doppler radar indicated heavy rainstorms and showers along the coast. All interstates surrounding Ledger are shut down until further notice. Listen to FEMA and National Guard personnel for later statements on this heavily developing story. Tune to 1240 FM and 1240 AM on your radio dials for later statements from media outlets on this dangerous situation. Stay away from this area when you can do so safely. We interrupt your news stations. This is an urgent emergency bulletin from the Federal Bureau Investigation. This message has been transmitted by request from the Department of Treasuries. The flooded waters and calcium carbide have spontaneously set the entire remainder of the 2 freight trains on fire. NTSB officials are still investigating at this time. Stay tuned for alter statements from NTSB officials on this chaotically developing story. Stay tuned for further updates when you can do so safely. The NTSB is speculating that faulty radio communication from the 2 derailed freight trains was the culprit of this nightmarish disaster. The rest of the freight cars not destroyed were evacuated immediately to car body shops for extensive rebuilding. Repeating again, faulty radio and communication was a likely factor in this horrific crash. Stay tuned from later media outlets on later statements from NTSB and FBI officials on this dangerously developing story. Stay away from this area. This is an emergency action notification. All broadcast systems shall transit this emergency action notification message. This message has interrupted programming by request of the United States government and White House to participate in this emergency. During this emergency, most stations will remain on the air providing news outlets to assigned areas. You are listening to the emergency broadcast system. Do not use your telephones as they are being only allowed for emergency use. The emergency broadcast system has been activated. We interrupt your news programming. This is a national emergency. Urgent instructions will follow. This message has been transmitted by request from the United States government, the NTSB, and NEST. Faulty radio communications were confirmed as the result of this nightmarish disaster. Also, an all clear has been given to anyone in a shelter. Repeating, all clears have been given to anyone in a shelter. It is now safe to return to your homes. We thank you for your cooperation during this emergency. We will return to normal programming on PBS under supervision from the emergency broadcast system.